So one of the best things about the Resident Evil franchise is how likable most of the protagonists of the series are. I mean, straight up, if you gather multiple Resident Evil fans in a single room and ask them who their favorite protagonist is, chances are that you'll hear a ton of different names, outside of the huge majority that are die-hard Leon fans, of course. And not only are there many playable protagonists of the franchise that fans adore, these same fans are also constantly hoping that their favorites will one day make a comeback. Well, in this episode of Nerd Games, I'm here to break some hearts. That's right, I'm going over 7 playable protagonists that I believe we'll never see in another game, unfortunately. For the record, I'm only talking about playable characters and mainline entries, so you won't see characters like Bruce or Ark on this list. Also, I won't be including characters that, at least at the time of recording this video, are confirmed deceased. So yeah, no Steve Burnside. Finally, when I say we won't see these characters again, I mean that we won't see them in another Resident Evil game. Other forms of media, like movies, TV, and novels, are all fair game. And this last part should be pretty obvious, but clearly remakes don't count when I say that, since I'm sure we'll continue to get remakes for every Resident Evil game, so we'll of course see the characters on this list return in remakes. Before we get started though, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel for more survival horror content. Also hit that like button if you enjoyed today's topic. Finally, this video is officially sponsored by G Fuel, so if you're looking for ways to support the channel, consider picking up your favorite type of G Fuel using the link below or the code NerdSpaceGames at checkout to save up to 20% off your next order. Anyway, my name is Ruben with Nerd Games, and here are 7 Resident Evil protagonists that we'll probably never see again. Number 1, Jake Muller. Starting with the son of Albert Wesker himself, we have Jake Muller, who only appeared in a single game, Resident Evil 6. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of the things that occurred in this game will probably be forgotten by Capcom considering the amount of hate this game got. In fact, RE6 is what led to Capcom reimagining the franchise once again, which ultimately gave us Resident Evil 7, arguably the scariest game of the franchise. Going back to Jake Muller though, you would assume that with his connection to the biggest villain of the franchise that he would be guaranteed to come back at some point. Unfortunately, that's not very likely. While he may have got a teaser at the end of RE6, and clearly Capcom had plans for him to become a new main protagonist of the series going forward, the negative feedback that the game received changed their plans, and it led to them taking the franchise in a different direction. Clearly, Capcom wants to focus on its horror once again, and with a protagonist like Jake Muller, a martial artist who excels at hand-to-hand combat, yeah, there was no chance in hell that Jake would be able to be the main character of a horror game. Action game? Sure. Horror game? Absolutely not. To make matters worse for this character, Jake has never been mentioned again in any form since he appeared in RE6. Revelations 2 have references to the game, and even Death Island gave a nod to Pierce Nibbins. But I hate to say, as intriguing of a character that Jake was, I can't see any way that Capcom finds a way to bring him back when they are focusing so hard on horror over action right now. Number 2, Carlos Oliveira. This one might seem like it's straight out of left field, especially considering how popular he is because of Resident Evil 3 Remake, but I really don't see Carlos ever returning in a future game. Don't get me wrong, I'm definitely on the Carlos train, as I personally can't live in a Carlos-less world.
It's alright, you're going ahead. I'm not gonna die on you, leave you in a cold, cruel, Carlos-less world.
Sadly, it seems that Capcom can, as there's no indication that this is a character that they want to bring back. In fact, he kind of wants to just stay out of it, as he's living somewhere in South America, I think, right now, and avoiding any conflict with Umbrella and other organizations creating or selling BOWs on the black market. If Carlos was someone that Capcom wanted to bring out of hiding at some point, they probably had plenty of opportunities to do that already. I mean, don't we think that Carlos would have got involved with finding Jill in RE5? Do we think he would have helped the BSAA to some degree if he really cared about the war against BOWs? The answer to both questions is yes. Still, he chose to remain in hiding and not get involved with any of it, and I don't see that changing anytime soon, unfortunately. Number 3, Billy Coen. The same things I said about Carlos could also apply to the next protagonist on today's list, Billy Coen. Although Billy Coen kind of has a reason to stay in hiding since the guy is a convicted criminal and officially speaking, he is supposed to be dead. Still, the way they ended Billy's story in Resident Evil 0 felt kind of unresolved since the last we saw him, he was in the middle of the Arklay Mountains, alone and unarmed. You know, the same mountains where they are crawling with those zombie dogs and potentially other infected creatures. Yeah, on paper, Billy's chances of surviving didn't look good, but this is a horror game, and the number 1 rule in horror games, if you don't see a body, then they are probably not dead. So, assuming Billy is alive and well out there, obviously he's probably in hiding considering the fact that he's a wanted criminal. So, kind of makes things impossible for him to come out of hiding and get involved with any of the outbreaks. I will say that I do think there's a possibility that we see Billy make a comeback in a CG film, especially one that's featuring Rebecca Chambers. But when it comes to the games, I just don't see it, unless Rebecca somehow finds out about Billy's whereabouts and she sets out to go rescue him. But even then, I just don't know if Rebecca will be front and center in a game again, so how can I expect that to work out for Billy? Number 4, Parker Luciani. The first Revelations game featured a handful of new characters, and if I'm being completely real with you guys, I just don't think any of them will make a comeback. Jessica and Raymond, while they are not technically protagonists, they are very unlikely to come back now that Tricell and Excella are done for. Keith and Quint are easily some of the most annoying protagonists in the entire series, so I pray to God that they don't ever come back. And then there's Parker Luciani, Jill's partner in Revelations. Now, full disclosure, I actually like Parker, and that's why he's the one that I'm featuring on today's list. He's a good person and a great partner who always tries to do the right thing despite everybody around him kind of betraying him left and right. Unfortunately, there's not really much of a reason to bring Parker back. While he had a cameo in a novel in which he was sent by Chris to rescue Claire, he hasn't appeared in a game since Revelations, and I highly doubt he ever will, especially with Chris no longer being with the BSAA in the present day, and clearly Parker's not with Chris's Houndwolf squad. So yeah, Parker is probably a non-factor going forward, except for a cameo here and there in the movies, TV shows, and the novels, of course. Number 5, Helena Harper. Taking another look at Resident Evil 6, there's one more protagonist from this game that I just don't think we will ever see again despite her having some potential. That of course is Helena Harper. While Pierce was clearly the best new character in the game, but he unfortunately died, and Jake Muller had the most intriguing backstory, but they turned him into an action hero, Helena was the only new surviving protagonist that I could see returned in a horror-focused Resident Evil game. Unfortunately, Helena was easily forgettable by most casual fans due to her being the least interesting new protagonist of the game. Plus, some fans, myself included, weren't too thrilled with some of her decision making throughout the game. While we of course understood why she did what she did, as it was to protect her sister, the way she handled the first few chapters of the game by hiding the truth from Leon until after they reach her sister was honestly kinda stupid as hell. Like, even dumber than Chris not telling Ethan about what was going on during the events of Village until late in the game. Regardless, because of what happened to her sister, Helena had a strong reason to be motivated against secret organizations like the Family and other groups that use BOWs to force their will. So with that in mind, she's a character that definitely deserves a second chance and someone that could easily find themselves on the front lines again in a similar situation that Leon has multiple times since Raccoon City. Unfortunately though, I think Helena's story is over, at least in the video games, as we'll probably never see her get that second chance that personally, I believe she deserves. Number 6, Barry Burton. Here's a hot take and a real gut punch to a lot of Barry Burton fans, but honestly, I don't think this guy is ever returning in a future game. Yeah, I know the post-credits scene of Revelations 2 kind of sets it up for him to return since it's revealed that Natalia Corda's body is being possessed by Alex Wesker, maybe? Honestly, that ending was kind of misleading, so who really knows what that scene meant? Regardless, with a scene like that, you would expect him to return, but think about it for a second. If we're looking at Resident Evil Requiem and where we are in the timeline, that would place this game in 2026 at the earliest. Guess how old that makes our boy Barry Burton? Almost 68 or somewhere in the late 60s at the very least. Yeah, he's old, very old in fact, and I definitely don't see him being on the front lines anytime soon. Now, I know there were rumors for a while that Barry would return as some sort of Hunnigan role to Jill Valentine in Resident Evil 9, but 1, that doesn't seem to be the case, and 2, I highly doubt Barry would fit that role well in my opinion. I mean, just imagine who Barry is. He's not some sort of tech or computer analyst. He's a warrior like Chris and like Leon. He's not someone that can really provide any assistance over comms like Hunnigan could, so that honestly just doesn't make sense to me. Plus, let's not forget, Barry kind of deserves a happy ending with his family. He's been through a lot with his family, from thinking they were kidnapped, to his daughter almost shooting his other daughter, to a disconnect with Mara before rebuilding their relationship when he comes to her rescue in Revelations 2. Yeah, Barry and his family deserves to just chill out and hang out away from all the drama. So I think best case scenario, at least in terms of the video games, we get a file or email that has Barry telling Jill or Chris how he and his family are doing. Hell, maybe the CG films will eventually see Jill or Chris giving him a call at some point for some advice, who knows? As for the whole Natalia thing, well, like I said with Jake, I think this is a cliffhanger that will absolutely go nowhere unfortunately, so don't get your hopes up on that changing anytime soon. Number 7, Ashley Graham. The final person I want to bring up is Ashley Graham. 20 years ago when Resident Evil 4 first came out, I don't think there was any doubt in my mind that Ashley Graham was never returning in a future Resident Evil game. I mean, she was borderline cringe and nobody, and I mean nobody, was rooting for her to return. Then 2 years ago, we got Resident Evil 4 Remake, and all of a sudden fans absolutely loved her and wanted to see her come back at some point now, myself included. And sure, we got that hint in the game of Ashley talking about training to become an agent one day so that she could work alongside Leon, but let's be real guys, that's not gonna happen. There's no way that a previous president's daughter is going to join Leon's agency and work alongside him. There's just no way. Would it be cool to see her come back? Yeah, absolutely. She was far more interesting to watch this time around, but with the amount of other protagonists in the franchise that deserves a comeback, like Jill Valentine, Rebecca Chambers, Claire Redfield, Sherry Birkin, and many more, Ashley is just someone that is not very high on the priority list in my opinion. Again, like I said earlier about some of the other characters on today's list, she might make sense for a cameo in a CG film or something like that, but in terms of a game in which she returns as a playable protagonist, yeah, I don't think that's happening. But that does it for this episode of Nerd Space Games. Hit up the comments and let me know what you think of my list. Do you agree with the people I featured as protagonists that won't be making a comeback in another Resident Evil game, or is there anybody that you think doesn't deserve to be on this list? Also, is there anybody that I did include on my list that you think are very unlikely to appear in a future game? Not gonna lie, I almost included Claire on this list because of her role in the series now as someone that works for TerraSave. But ultimately, I decided against it as she found herself on the front lines multiple times before despite working for TerraSave, so I don't think that should eliminate her chances for returning in future games. Regardless, let me know your thoughts down below. Anyway, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more survival horror content. Also leave a like on today's video if you really enjoyed today's topic. Well, thanks for watching, and as always, I'll catch you guys on the next episode of Nerd Space Games. Take care.